Alright, welcome back. In a previous video I added a snippet selector so I can quickly add blocks of text to my video description so I don't have to hunt them down or copy and paste them from notes. But in this video we're going to add a snippet editor so that I can add new snippets and edit old ones. So of course new snippets get edited live to the picker so that I can quickly add them. So after a couple of days of working on it, I settled on something I'm pretty happy with. So we'll walk through some of this in a little bit, but I just want to quickly scrub through it to show you there's really not much to it. So really the most important part is refactoring this hook to be a reusable hook. So here's the code for our hook, and after that we just do a bit of refactoring. So let's get into it. Now that our code base has grown a little bit, there's a lot more warnings when I go to build the app, so it's kind of hard to find the actual error. So I wanted to turn these warnings off for now. I'll fix them one of these days. So now they're off and we can immediately find the actual problem. So now let's add a new component for our pop-up app. So this will be a wrapper for the actual pop-up now, moving away from a JSX file. So quickly just some boilerplate, somewhere we can load our snippet editor and any future components. So for now, our snippet editor will have a pretty simple model. It'll only consist of a form record, and that form will have a new snippet on it that we'll, of course, add new snippets with, and an array of snippets that we will be able to edit in their own individual forms. And then we'll set up a paper component to put our editor into. So we have a nice clean list of forms to edit our snippets in. Now we can set up our initial state. So our new snippet's just going to be a brand new record. Let's say new description snippet. And as an element enthusiast, I pretty much am obligated to use reducer here. And now we'll need a message to handle when we get our snippets from the hook to update the array of snippets on our form. So now we can pull some snippets and a maybe port from our hook we're about to write. So now I'll go ahead and rip the use effect from our snippet picker to put over on our hook so we can reuse it. So our initial state will be an empty array of snippets and none or no port yet. So I have a couple little typos here I'll fix in a second. But we'll refactor this helper function as well so we can reuse this. So instead of dispatch, we'll set our local state. But now we do have some cleanup. This sum function here is a cleanup function. Not every effect has cleanup, but this one will. And I wanted to refactor the type of message that comes in. We'll let each component that sends a message or receives a message through a hook can define its own message type, and we'll call it a tag. Now we have a disconnect function, so we'll add a listener for it so we can wire that up properly. So if the snippets from the hook change, we'll update our forms snippets. And turns out this part didn't work like I thought it did, so I'm just deleting some stuff. And now our port message is no longer a record, but we will let the hook define a type of tag that we can use. And so in our hooks port listener, we will listen for got snippets tag, and its payload will be snippets. Now we can wire up the snippet editor to the service worker. So we need to listen to messages from the snippet editor. And just like the snippet picker, whenever it connects, we will send down the list of snippets. And our hook can pick up those snippets and pass them along to our components. So once again, when the hook receives snippets, we will go ahead and update our forms copy of snippets. So now that our model is receiving snippets, we can go ahead and wire up forms to edit those snippets. So a bit of boilerplate here. We have a form with an onSubmit that we can dispatch a submitted message along with the snippet that we are editing in the text inputs. So we can pull the value out of the current target from the value field. And then we'll dispatch a set snippet message updating the fields. Now we have form inputs. Let's add some buttons so we can undo or save. So to update a snippet, we will map over the snippets in our form. If the snippet matches, then we will replace it, flagging it as changed. That's what the true Boolean there is for. Otherwise, we'll leave it alone, and then we will update our form with our new snippets, and then updating our state with our new form. So in order to save a snippet now, we need to send a message over our port telling the service worker to update the snippet and save it in IndexedDB. Now we can wire up the listener for the tag from our snippet editor. So we'll pull the snippet out of the tag and put it in the database. And after updating them, we'll send them back down to our components. So how can we send a message from our snippet editor to our snippet picker? Since the only ports in our listener's map is the editor and the picker, if we for each over them, we can send the same message to both. That way the hook listing in both of those components will receive the newly updated snippets. So undo changes will reset all the forms except for the new form. So editing snippets works pretty well now. Now I want to be able to add new snippets, so let's go ahead and get that wired up. So in an effort to reuse the same message, we'll go ahead and do some checks for whether or not we're editing the new snippet field on our form or an old one. And likewise, when we're hitting submit, if it's a snippet without an ID, that means it's a new one, so we'll go ahead and save that. So saving looks a lot like editing. So now our pop-up can add new snippets. So let's go ahead and fix our picker to pull from our hook and not read from our model. So after a bit of refactoring and getting everything wired up, we can add new snippets and edit snippets, and they show up live in the picker. That's pretty much all there is to it. All that's left is a bit of styling and polish. And thanks for watching. Hit subscribe if you want to see more. Thanks.